did a run-up, they had to get away. In getting away, he found himself and really didn't like what he saw. As much as I can gather fragments of his life and put them together, the one thing where they're most unified is in his writing. And the writing that came out of that period is his last novel, which is about the kind of psychological destruction of a person in exile through, drink and loneliness and just dislocation. A stretch of open beach with nothing on it, absolutely nothing, for miles and miles and miles. It's not been taken. It's not been claimed by people. He writes about the noise of it here. Maybe that's something you get used to. Or maybe that's just something that drives you mad. And he's a person of extremes, particularly where drinking is concerned. Lewis came out of late 50s jazz and to a certain extent was bohemian. I get the sense that he rejected all that kind of 60s hippie stuff. Probably he craved order, but had absolutely no means of achieving it for himself. In that place, at that time, walking to the beach with the heat, it's oppressive. Even that huge sky, it's endless. It can still press in on you. I think everything did begin to press in on him. Allen Ginsberg, the poet, went mad when he contemplated the infinity of the sky, and he was committed after that. It's something similar, I think. The isolation of that place and the fact that there's a pub as a social focal point. The book that he wrote out of it implies an awful lot. That was the point at which things really began to break down. That he began to not cope. From the outside, the apparent insanity of the film world and of the publishing world, the kind of Soho crime world, animation and international deals, everything he was involved in, you would have thought that that would be more dangerous than dislocating yourself and putting yourself in somewhere completely off the grid. I don't think he could ever have been happy anywhere. I don't think he had it within him. Taking himself off out there, just put him face to face with everything he'd done, everything he hadn't done. He had a real darkness in him. You get a sense of it in the book that followed it, and you get a sense of it, I think, when you go there. The character in the book, he ends up losing it. He's definitely not thinking straight, and he's drinking too much. On that stretch of beach there are these kind of old military vehicles that are used as target practice, and he gets trapped in the tank and it catches fire while he's inside it and he dies in the fire. He burns to death. As hellish an imagining as you could possibly have. He's writing that maybe like a year, 2 years later, and looking back at that period with a certain distance. He's a novelist, he's a writer. You can't help but draw those conclusions and examine those kind of illusions for what they mean. He was writing with this idea of that proper writing was literary writing. Fiction, I don't think, was initially more than he needed to make some money. So he needed to write something that would sell. That first crime fiction novel would define his entire life. It's got massive elements of autobiography. The resentment he feels towards the kind of middle class, the Masonic connections that his father had, the county set that kind of ran things in those days. There's a bitterness that comes through, and he wrote a follow-up to Jack's Return Home. Obviously by then it's called Get Carter, and by then everybody knows it, which nobody was interested in. It wasn't as if that one novel catapulted him into like the public consciousness as it might do now. 7 years later, he's living on this empty beach, and he's crammed such an enormous amount of living and achievement and expectation and ambition and rank disappointment and self-loathing and guilt into that time. And then he's got space, massive space, an infinite sky, the sound of the sea, to just think about it. You'd think it could be a cleansing thing, but it isn't. The truth as told by one person can be completely refuted by the next person. And in the end, nobody tells the truth, they just tell their version.